one common misconception that marketers and influencers alike are having is that social media is a one-to-many form of communication. And I don't think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started talking about how to make engaging social media posts, since we're all new faces to the podcast, let's go around and do some introductions. I'll lead us off. My name is Connor Walsh. I'm an interactive web management major. I've been working at the Digital Marketing Clinic for 6 months now, doing website redesign, social media posts, and consulting with clients.
So my name is Ella Rue. I'm a marketing major here, and I literally just started here, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm Carleen Meyer. I'm a marketing major as well, and I'm also new and just started a few weeks ago.
So Connor's our veteran.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to ask you guys this question. When was the last time you really sat down and thought about what your goals are on social media? Not just for a specific post or channel, but for all of your efforts combined. Goals are important because they give you something to work for and motivate you to keep trying to improve your content. In the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, he talks about setting a high goal for yourself. His reasoning is because falling short of a big goal will put you in a better spot than falling short of a smaller goal that you set for yourself. So let me frame this for you. An example, say your goal is to make $100,000. I think you should set that goal to be $1 million. Because if you're shooting for $1 million, think about where you're going to be at if you fall short of that. You're going to be in a better spot than if you fell short of 100,000 or if you even hit 100,000. So my question to you guys is, do you agree with that logic? And what would you guys say is some benefits of setting a high goal?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly really think that whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve. So I would agree, set the bar high. Then if you fall low, well, you still would have been way higher than you would have originally.
You're still
been.
going to be in a better spot than if you set that low goal.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I like that we open up with goals because it's kind of the first thing you want to establish in social media.
Exactly.
Is what do you want to get out of this? What are you trying for? So that's really important. Open with it and have that question in mind throughout your whole entire.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to go in blind, not having any idea of where you want to be, how you want to grow,
Exactly. Because then how do you know how to inform your content?
How do you even evaluate what you did for the year?
Exactly.
And this kind of rule, it's it pushes you. Shoot for the stars, but also don't make it super unattainable because then you just end up disappointed.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for small businesses, you can't expect to be at 1 million followers after a year, but definitely push yourself to get as many as you can, but don't expect to be an influencer after 1 year.
We sound like coaches. Push yourself.
Yes.
Push yourself.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Once you have a goal laid out for yourself, it's important to consider what social media platforms will help you achieve your goal. Did you know that influencers and marketers have figured out that different social media platforms are more effective for achieving different metrics? In the book, Digital Marketing Essentials by Jeff Larson and Stuart Draper, they've created this graphic to organize what social media platforms are best for achieving specific objectives. Based on what you guys have seen across social media platforms, do you think this list holds true? And if not, what would you change about it?
Yeah, I think it is definitely very accurate, especially for advertising. You look at Facebook and Instagram, and that is those two platforms are perfect because they both have a very different audience group in it. You look at Facebook, you have your older adults, Instagram, younger adults. You definitely want to make sure you're getting a little bit of everything. You want to include all those different people that could potentially be interested in your product, your company, your service. So yeah, I really like that section of this.
Yeah, I think YouTube is a good secondary form for that because so many people are on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with shorts now.
Especially with shorts. You can reach a huge audience. You can't narrow it down like you can on Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
But just the mass reach.
Yes, agreed.
I just absolutely I just love this because it lays it out so well. And what we were talking about before with goals, what is your goal? What platforms can you use to obtain this? Because if you're a small business, you don't need every single platform. That's so complicated to manage. If you can just hone in on the platforms where you can be successful, push it out on those platforms.
Yes, that's a really good point, especially when you're just starting out. You can definitely do too much to start off. So just having those few that you are really consistent with and very present on is definitely beneficial.
You
I
don't
think-
want to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that that's why people are kind of scared of digital marketing because they're like, oh my gosh, I need an X, I need a Pinterest, I need a. But
Yes.
you don't need all of
You don't
that.
need it all.
And I mean,
Right.
even for search engine optimization, I mean, think about it. With being Facebook, you look something up. What's the first thing that pops up usually?
Mhm.
Facebook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
For
that's really important.
And a lot of these you can see, like, you can kill like two birds with one stone. Like
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, they're kind of filling in like in every kind of area of it too. So
All right.
Once
Once
a great graphic, I just love that.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
it is,
good.
it is a really good graphic. I do like that too.
Well, I've got more good graphics for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We
There
started
they are.
very strong.
Yes, this
there
is
they
very,
are.
I like this a lot too. Yeah.
Once you figured out what platforms are best to achieve your goals, the next step that many people overlook is posting times.
Mm-hmm.
Through extensive research, marketers have been able to narrow down when users are most active on social media. This allows them to make sure that posts are going live during the best possible time in any given day, on any given platform. Looking at these charts, do you guys agree with the times of most traffic indicated by the darker times on the graph? Also, how do you think influencers and businesses can use this information to their advantage when posting?
This is just so surprising to me because you look at Instagram global engagement, you would never think that like the busiest time to post would be like in the middle of the day on a Monday.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you would never think that Sunday, a day where people are pretty much just lounging around on
Laying
their
on
free
the
time,
couch,
would be
yeah.
the worst day to post.
Right.
You would never think that.
Right, but I think knowing it is so beneficial because if
Yeah.
you tie up your Meta Business Suite and if you schedule those posts, we all know everyone's busy. If you don't have the time to be like on your phone monitoring these like exact timings for posting, you can set it ahead. You can schedule it for those times so that you really can get as big of a reach as possible so people can really like utilize your post, maximize your views. Yeah, I would definitely really take advantage of those posting times.
That's where I think a content calendar is really beneficial.
Yes.
For
Because
sure.
you can look at these times and think, oh, on this date, it's a good date for me to be posting for whatever field of business you're in.
Exactly.
What time should this post be going live? I can just schedule it now and Meta will take care of it all for you.
Yeah, and even the same thought, like, or hey, maybe like I'm not doing much on Sundays, but I should know not to because most people apparently aren't active on Sundays. So like,
Mhm.
just kind of keeping that in mind too. I mean, you definitely want to make sure you're hitting those key posting times because Connor will touch on it further. But you want to make sure that people, if there's not a big presence when you post, it's not going to be reaching everyone else's feed.
Right.
If it gets a lot of action right away, it's going to get spread out more. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely important to think about that too.
Yeah. It's better to look at it in a whole in this sense. Like think about
Yes.
you know.
I think something that surprised me from these graphs is like the demographics. Like
Yeah.
looking at the fact that males have like a more presence on Instagram and Facebook was really surprising to me.
Mhm.
Very surprising because
Yeah. Yeah, like where are the Facebook moms? I thought they towered
Yeah.
over Facebook.
Yeah, literally. Or just like I swear I never see men post on Instagram
No.
like ever.
Literally.
I never do.
Like,
I
he
never-
never
Exhibit
does,
A,
right?
Exhibit A.
I'm guilty.
So,
Yeah.
and if they
really
do, it's
interesting.
not much. And I feel like, you know, a lot of like the influencer population is like typically
Female, yeah, I would
So
agree with that 100%.
it's just it's an interesting thing to think about. And I
Mhm.
mean, and the ages as well. I mean, I
Ages
feel
is pretty typical.
very
Yeah, I
active.
would agree with those numbers for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I fit the 18 to 24, and I'm definitely more on Instagram than
Because you think
Facebook.
about it, it's like the Gen Zs are typically using Instagram,
Mhm.
and the Gen millennials and then Gen X are typically
Yes,
using
for
Facebook.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to segue. One common misconception that marketers and influencers alike are having is that social media is a one-to-many form of communication, and I don't think that's true.
Mhm.
If you think about it,
No.
how many times are you sitting scrolling through your feed with a group of people, looking over your
You're just
shoulder?
gonna
at the
live
same
stream
You're
it
not,
on your
yeah,
TV.
you're
Yeah,
not.
I'm not airplaying my feed on
Right, right.
No one
Um,
wants to
And
say
thank
that.
God, yeah.
Yeah. So due to this, I think social media is more of a one-to-one form of communication. I want to know your thoughts on that. And
Mhm.
how should that change the approach of businesses or influencers when creating their messaging, creating their captions and titles?
Definitely. I mean, you have to think about everyone as an individual. Even if all three of us pulled up our social medias, all of our feeds would be unique to itself.
Right.
We all have created our own algorithms. So, like, companies definitely have to think about that. Like, the way that their post might appear in yours might not appear in mine, kind of thing. So, they definitely have to consider that they have to, reach out to people, look at them as a person and not as, like, a general, like, population kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys 100%. I think that, what Carlene said pretty much took all the words out of my mouth with that one
Yeah.
there, actually.
I think it's important for the messaging to be, I feel like now businesses are saying things, they're phrasing that they're talking to a group. I feel like it's more important for them to change that phrasing, just tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you're talking to the one viewer that is,
Right.
I feel like that would resonate more and get more attention from them as well.
I agree. Plus, it makes like the user, like the viewer, feel like more targeted or like
Exactly.
more like individual. Like, oh, they're talking to me. Like they're trying to
Get
get
someone
like
involved.
they want me. Yeah, they want me to be. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like, you know,
More
those, like,
personalized.
Yeah.
More.
People, and like it's a big thing with Gen Z, especially is individualization. People want to feel like it's me, I'm special.
Definitely.
Very like personable. That's another big thing
Yes,
right now
I
too.
would agree.
And yeah, at the end of the day, you're not like, if you're with your friends and you're just chilling on someone's couch, you're not all like live streaming and you're TikTok on the
Exactly.
feed. You're all watching your own TikToks and you're like, oh, look at this one, it's funny, you know.
And like chances are too, like if I see like something that I like an ad, for example, and I feel like really like intrigued by it, I'm gonna have higher chances of like spreading the word about it to other people
Yeah.
than if I'm just like, oh, this looks like kind of just like spam almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
All right, I want to touch more on that feeling that we brought up briefly.
Yeah.
yes.
Branding. It's typically thought of just a logo or a color that your company has, but I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
When Marty Newmeyer, the author of The Branding Gap, was on the Future podcast, he said just that. He said branding is a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, or a company. This gut feeling is created by the customer consuming content from a brand and feeling a certain way about it. My question to you is, how do you think brands can modify their content to help their audience form a positive gut feeling and have them thinking highly of their brand?
So I think that one of the most important things that you can do to get people that good gut feeling, to get them to think highly of their brand, is just to understand your audience. So it ties into the individualization thing from before, if I can speak correctly.
Yeah.
So it all kind of ties into that. I think, you know, understanding your brand, what does the data tell you? What is it
Yeah.
telling you to do to cater to your audience? I think that's really important when it comes to getting people to like think highly of you and want to promote your brand.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit that on the spot. Definitely want to look into your audience and definitely the kind of people that are in your audience and how you can engage them.
I think it's also about the messaging and the contextualization of the content. Like you want to frame it in like a friendly way,
Right.
so people feel like your brand is more friendly, some they can trust. So I think that also
Definitely.
plays a
Yeah,
big role
for
into
sure.
it.
Yeah, the tone is super important.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to move into reaching a larger audience, how to get your post out there. Last week, I was doing some research on this to try to figure out how to get a video form content, short form or large form,
Yeah.
in front of a larger audience. In doing so, I came across a researcher by the name of Brendan Kane.
It's Connor's absolute favorite person. By the way.
I've been watching a lot of content from him.
Yeah.
Every day he comes in and he's like, "Did you guys see this Brandon King video?"
Hey, he's been
True
researching virality since 2004, so he's
Yeah.
been in the game for a while.
Yeah.
And he's very research based, so he does a lot of research and testing to figure out what works. And he thinks that you need to contextualize your content more to reach a larger audience. So I'm going to show this graphic.
This graph.
Yeah.
This graphic.
I love this graphic.
Let me break it down for you guys. So this cone right here, the dark blue, is your target audience. That's who you think that you want to target with your content. And typically we curtail our content towards them.
Yes.
The large light blue is the whole audience that's on a social platform. And these gray rings are the audience that the algorithms will serve your content to. This first inner circle, when you first post your post, it puts it out to a large sample group, and it wants to see how that group receives your content. Retention, how many people click on it, stuff like that. And if you get enough reactions, enough retention, it'll serve it to the next larger audience. And if you see it, you'll end up getting more of your target audience, which is who you want to get. What Brendan Kane's trying to get at is you want to make your content curtailed to where you can capture this white space, the rest of the audience. So you want to contextualize your content so that a general audience engages with it, likes it, and that'll get it boosted to a larger audience so that therefore you're getting more of your target audience in there as well. So my question to you guys, what are some ways you think influencers in business can utilize this information to make their posts more successful?
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at that circle, I love this graph because when you think about it, your target audience really only is that little fraction. And like when you think about it from this kind of a standpoint, if you're only like creating stuff like directed towards that little piece of the target audience, you're missing out on the majority of the like the pie or the
Right.
circle, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's important for businesses to really like look at beyond just their target audience. Because if you think about it, their target audience, they kind of already have in a sense. Like they kind of already have them engaged. They're kind of already part of like what they're doing. So I think it's important to be like, okay, so I have this little group. How can I expand that
How can you
group?
grow it from there?
And yeah, exactly, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like contradicting of what I think that some people have heard before. Because all you
Mhm.
hear when you're like making your first social media platforms or you're going into digital marketing is target audience, specialization, like
Mhm.
individualization, like what we were talking about before. But in reality, you want to specialize it to some degree, and you want the audience again to have that one-to-one communication, that the individualization. I'm really struggling with that word today aspect of it.
It's a big
But as you can see here, you're hitting people that aren't in your initial target
Mhm.
audience, and they also want to feel understood.
Mhm.
So I think it's really important to generalize that content to some degree as well.
I think the key is to have your content to where your niche audience is going to be captured by. You still want to keep that in mind because
Right,
like, at the end of the day, you don't want to make
Lose
your
them,
you don't want to lose your target audience.
Right.
But it's framing that content in a way that anybody can engage with and
Yeah.
finds appealing.
Mhm.
So
And I think it's important too from like a social media standpoint, when you look at that original circle, like who you're posting to,
Mhm.
if you can attract more than just your target audience, it is gonna blow up and get so much more publicity because it's gonna keep expanding on the next ring. It's gonna
Right.
keep moving forward. And as you can see, like the farther along you move in the rings, the more like bigger it gets with like the people that aren't engaged. So the more people you can attract and just get that brand awareness for yourself too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
let's talk about the difference between a social media trend and a social media format because there is a difference, and I think people
Very
utilize it differently.
Yes.
Because typically, when a business or influencer is trying to go viral, they will jump on the trends. But I think they need to be jumping more on the formats. I want to hear your thoughts on this, but first, let me define the two for you. A trend is a post, topic, or an idea that is hyped or popularized for a limited period of time, and that's the key. A format is a storytelling structure that is designed to work for any subject matter that lasts for years and can even last decades. To give credit where credit is due, I got these definitions while I was watching some of Brendan Kane's content on YouTube. But now I want to ask you guys, do you agree with his definitions on trends and formats? And how can influencers in business use this knowledge to create more engaging posts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think especially like connecting influencers and trends, I feel like a lot of the stuff influencers do is that short term.
Yeah.
And that's why it blows up so fast and why they get all that what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Popularity.
popularity.
followers.
Yeah. Like it all just goes so quick. But I think from like a business standpoint, you definitely want to look more long term, following formats, getting to know what formats are too, other than just the trends.
Yeah, I totally agree with what he said and how he categorized it. Follow what works, right? Follow what's always going to
Yeah.
work.
I feel like from a business perspective, like trends, it may give you that short-term popularity and a little
Yeah.
boost, but that'll fall off.
Yeah.
Like people realize, hey, their content doesn't really resonate with me. It was just
Right.
that one trend.
That like one hit wonder people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think the most important thing you can do for your social media is be consistent.
Mhm.
Yes,
I think that's
for
and that's
sure.
the one thing that we preach here at the clinic is be consistent with your posts. Like, and I think that just having that format, that consistency is so overlooked.
Right, it's repeatable and it'll help you be more
Mhm.
consistent because you're not
Yeah.
scratching your brain like, man, what do I do for this next post?
Right.
Yeah.
It's, oh, I have this format. I have the idea I want to present. It's just a matter of getting that idea presented in this format, and that's more manageable than
Right,
coming up
yeah.
with a whole new idea.
For
Absolutely.
sure. And I mean, I think like a trend could be a good way to like get your name out there,
Mhm.
but then like having that consistency afterward to make sure people stick around and work out long term for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's now talk about some common formats so we can get an idea of how to identify them. And we can use them to our advantage in our posts as well. First, I want to talk about a common movie format that everyone should know. It's a 3-act structure. Whenever a screenwriter is planning out how to write their story in a movie format, they always stick to the 3-act structure. And why do you think this is?
I mean, it's like the most simple structure of all
Right.
time, right? Beginning, middle, end.
Yep.
And it's at like the very core of literally any sort of
Mhm.
social media
Mhm.
video out there. You have your opener, your content, and then how are you going to finish with the bang?
Right.
I mean, it works.
And it
Exactly.
works. And it works
Everyone
every
follows it,
time.
yeah.
it works.
I mean, 1, 2, 3. Like it doesn't get more simple than that.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
One common social media format that I see people using are visual metaphors. In this format, creators use a simple metaphor that is eye-catching and can easily be understood to explain their content. This is one way that people can contextualize their content to intrigue a larger audience. Are there any other formats that you guys have seen on social media that have been performing well and can be used by anyone in any field?
Day
Yeah.
in the lives.
Yeah,
Day in
for
the
sure.
lives,
Yeah, that's a big
voiceovers,
Yeah.
like voiceovers are so huge right now.
Mhm.
They are.
It's just the clips of what are you doing? How are you getting there? Like a process of you doing something and then you talking over it.
I
is
think voiceovers
so-
are very effective in like short form content because you get people just scrolling and
Yes.
scrolling. So if you can use a visual that keeps that stops the scroll, and then your voiceover is providing your content in a way that that person will engage with, I think that's the key.
I would agree.
It's like those like get ready with me's, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to watch them. People
Exactly.
love watching what people are doing.
Yeah.
Today. Or like the what I eat in a days or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
People get hooked on that
Yeah.
structure.
Mhm.
And I'm talking a lot about influencers, but influencer content is so
It's
transferable.
intriguing, yeah.
It's intriguing, but it's also something that can easily be switched over to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's something really important. Is if you're ever like don't know what format to follow, look at what some people who are successful and look at what they've been
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah.
And thinking about what formats are they using and what makes them successful.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
One thing I like to tell people, like, take advantage of your competition, like, see what they're doing, and if it works for them, definitely, like, make your own spin on it, but try it, you know?
It's all about looking at what's working.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find a winning format that you think is performing well, then I think it's important to gather different people who have been using that format and see what they're doing different and how it affects their posts differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how many views they have. And one little difference could lead to a massive change in
It's so
the
true.
reach you have.
It's so true.
So you want to find a format that you think is doing well that you can replicate, and then figure out how people are using it to encapsulate an audience.
Yeah.
And like I talk about like, you know, processes in the day in my life or what I eat in days and how like a good example of how you can transfer that into a business is the process of you if you like are a business and you're creating something,
Mhm.
walk through the process of how you're creating your
Mhm.
product and people
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And it's all about the presentation and that
Yeah.
too. Like, if you just capture one stagnant angle of the process, people aren't going to engage with that. But if you
Right.
do it, there's a way to present that in a way that would really resonate with an audience, that would keep them on your content. You could provide information alongside that too. So.
Definitely.
I'm just thinking of like I've seen this candy shop somewhere on like Instagram Reels or something, and they're
Mhm.
like, watch us like make this candy, and they go through the whole entire thing of how they like
Yeah.
glued it up and how
Yeah.
they knead it out and how they cut it up, and it's that process stuff. People
Yeah.
love that.
I just have like an example, like the overnight oats. It'll be like,
Yep.
watch us package up a client's like order, blah blah
Yes.
blah. They'll like put in all the stuff, and then they'll like kind of break down what each thing is, and then just kind of like promotes their.
That's a
products
really
and
great
everything.
example, actually, because
Yeah.
people love that. Like, watch me
Mhm.
package customer number, whatever.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
then they'll
yeah.
walk through how they.
That
package
kind of
it.
helps with brand rep too, because then you know a little
Yeah.
bit more about that brand. You can kind of
Like they're
envision
trustworthy.
their whole process,
Yeah.
and it helps them gain trust.
Yeah.
So that's another way to
Exactly,
form
Yeah.
your content.
I really like that example. That's a great thing to bring up.
Before we talk about some example hooks anyone in any industry can use, I want to show you guys this chart. It breaks down how people perceive your hooks so that we can keep this in mind when deciding what hook to pick for each form of content that we're posting. So the first chunk is a 30% feeling based. These people perceive content through feeling, meaning that they engage with content that makes them feel a certain way. The next category is the 25% fact based. They like content that provides analytics, data that they can analyze and get a better understanding of your content. The next biggest is the 20% fun at the top. These people enjoy stimulations through excitement or thrill. The next one is the 10% value based. This means that they like content that aligns with their beliefs. The next 10% is imagination. And a good analogy is Albert Einstein. He typically sat in like a chair next to a window and just looked and thought. These people like content that makes them think a certain way, makes them reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is 5%. They're action based. They have a really strong sense of urgency. So my question to you guys is, looking at this graph and knowing a little bit about each category now, How should this knowledge change the way that people present their content and pick their hooks?
I'm like really surprised, honestly, that feelings is the largest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I just remember like what goes viral and like if someone posts something like really depressing.
Yeah.
Like usually that like blows up.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Like something that just tugs on the heartstrings a little
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just looking at the chart in general, they can kind of like, companies can kind of break down like what their posts have maybe like attracted before and then kind of see where they might need to like switch up, make changes.
Right.
Yeah.
How to really tailor to the most people they can.
bit. And it's kind of hard to like also like for your brand, it's hard to like if people are most in touch with their feelings and stuff. How do you cater your brand to
Right.
be sad? You don't want that for your brand necessarily.
Right.
Well, the thing about all these buckets, I'll say, that we categorize people into, you don't need to target just one in your
Right.
form of
Mhm.
content. You can
True.
hit many different, like if it's a short form content, you can hit on, like, you don't have to hit on each.
Mhm.
Maybe just focusing on the top three, the fact, fun, and feeling. But you can hit multiple in one video to
For
get that
sure.
bigger audience.
I mean, who doesn't like fun?
Right.
I love
Who
fun.
doesn't?
And I guess on the flip side, like for feelings, we could do like, I'm excited, I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm-
that's true.
You know, I feel like when I think of feelings though, I do think more of like the sad connotation,
Right.
like
Well,
Maybe-
oh, someone's dog died.
Maybe
You know what
you're
I mean?
just sad.
Because that one,
Yeah, maybe we're
True.
just sad people. I don't know.
Yeah.
that one's used a lot though, like the sad, like
Yeah.
humane shelters, like
Yes.
dog shelters. They'll use that sad feeling.
Oh
to
my
help you
gosh, the
engage
girl with the song
Yeah.
and the
Oh,
commercials.
yeah.
Oh, what was her name?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
With like the violin.
Yeah, I know you're
Yeah.
I can, yeah.
All right. Now that we know how different users.
Now that we're all
engage-
depressed and stuff.
Now that we're all
On that note, let's move
on
on.
that note. But now that we know how different users engage with content, we need to find a hook that will engage the most of them in the fewest seconds possible. Typically, the first 3 seconds is what we say.
Yeah.
A few examples are the curiosity gap, ASMR, or talking about a mistake in a certain field. What are some examples of hooks you guys have seen on social media, and what are your thoughts on framing them effectively? And feel free to elaborate
Yeah.
on
Actually,
Yes.
before we jump into that, do you think you could maybe explain a little bit on what the curiosity gap is?
Oh,
for
yeah.
some
Yeah,
audience
so
that might not know?
the curiosity gap. Typically, this is a hook that you use right away.
Mhm.
You want to present like not a question, but you want to have a mysterious part in your video
Mhm.
that gets the user thinking, what is that?
Mhm.
And you want to reveal it at the end
Mhm.
so you get that whole attention.
Mhm.
But if you can get them caught on that mystery of like, what is that? What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
That'll keep them watching and you'll get their attention that you want.
I think like the one example you gave last week when we were talking about this that helps you understand curiosity gap is like seeing a video in your feed, like 5 things you're doing wrong in the gym.
Yep.
Because then you're like, oh, like
What am I
if-
doing?
Yeah, is this me? Like, what can I fix?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just like that little like immediate like kind of like reaction that people are like, oh, that's me. Like, I
Yeah.
gotta watch this whole thing now. So
That's kind of tackling 2 of them too. That's the curiosity gap of am I
Mhm.
making these mistakes and the mistakes in the field one. It's like you can highlight typical mistakes or frame it like, are you making these mistakes? And that'll really
Right.
get people to watch.
Or it's like, the top 5s, like top 5 best places to
Yeah.
go in like
Mhm.
Wisconsin or something.
top
like
5
that.
best schools and
Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
top
you
5
wanna
best
see a
schools.
and you're like,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yes, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I wonder if I'm on here, and then you watch
Yeah,
the whole entire
and
thing.
you're not.
So, like, and you're not, and then you're sad
But
again.
you watched the whole thing, you know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they got what they wanted.
And then
They got you to watch.
And they
Yeah,
spike
exactly.
your feelings into, they
Carlene, we're just sad.
yeah, right. We're just
Yeah, maybe-
working, like,
Maybe
now.
we just need to work on our emotional well-being. on this table.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that we're sad again, let's move on.
Right. Can we, speaking of ASMR, can we bring back slime videos to do?
Yeah.
ASMR
I
is
used
a
to
very
make
powerful
slime.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
The
so
beads, like the crunchy.
yeah, so
like-
someone explain how ASMR is related to those hooks a little bit.
So when we were talking about walking people through the production of your product or the packing of your product, that's one that I see a lot. If
Mhm.
you're making a video that shows how you pack your product, getting a mic close to like if you're
Oh,
tearing
yes,
paper,
yes.
you're sealing something, you're breaking a box.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you may want to make fun of the use of ASMR,
Yes.
but it's effective and
It's
it
a
works.
real
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
It's a real
My
thing.
favorite is when people do like typically moms do like their Sunday resets and they're like
Oh yeah.
clinking their little jars,
Yeah.
like
spraying the
stop,
counter.
yes,
what-
wiping everything,
Yes.
cleaning. Oh,
There's
I
a
love it.
reason that slime businesses haven't gone out
Yeah,
of
it's still-
business.
yeah.
There's a reason that they're still promoting on TikTok, and every now and then you get slime, like, and then they're like clicking and like
Yeah,
bowling
for real.
and hopping and stuff. Like, there's a reason that stuff is still popular and people still buy it.
From an
Yeah.
influencer perspective, I've seen they weren't like advertising a product or anything, but like people breaking ice with rocks.
Yeah.
Like that's a big
Yeah.
one. I'm not necessarily saying that you can use that for per se a business or promotion of a product, but that's an example of how it can be effective and like people engage with that.
Yeah,
kind of
they
stuff.
do.
Like I know I watch some of those videos, they're cool.
Yeah.
And it can kind of tie into like what we were talking about before with like the formats. If you show the process of how you make
Right.
something, if you include like cutting cloth with scissors or like something like that,
Oh,
people
yeah.
love to like listen to that and they're watching how you make it. So it's like format
Mhm.
and hook all together.
Or like if you're showing how to wrap a gift.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna
and
say
you do
that
like
example.
the
Yeah.
scissors, like
And,
the-
like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just like wrapping it all, yeah.
Did you see how we
For
were
sure.
all in sync with that? That was amazing.
I was literally just gonna. that's so funny you said that.
We're all
That was my
on the same-
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same wavelength though.
We're all on the same feet, I guess. Connor's just not sad.
Yeah,
I'm just
he's
not-
just not depressed.
I'm bringing the energy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever considered why businesses in a specific industry tend to use a specific color for their brand? Believe it or not, color theory plays a big role in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Humans tend to associate different colors with different feelings. For example, blue is typically related to trust and loyalty. This is why insurance companies like Aflac and Progressive tend to use blue for their main color.
Mhm.
Another example is red. Red typically suggests feelings of hunger or thirst, influencing people to get food.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this graphic, would you guys say that your feelings about the brands shown align with the psychology behind the color that they're using?
You know, I never realized how many insurance companies were blue till I
For,
like, heard
yeah,
that.
for real.
Because seriously, it's locally, it's on a national level. I
Mhm.
mean, every single one that I can like think of,
Definitely.
except for a select few, are blue. And it's the same thing with fast food, right? Like so many
Yes.
fast food restaurants use red.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally fitting too. It's like an
Yeah.
exciting, like kind of like how we talked about before, like hunger is like an immediate, like it's like an urgency, like a sense of urgency. And then like seeing Target on there too, I feel like a lot of like your typical like mom girl aesthetic is like Target's like a experience. It's like good
Right.
place to like go get good like fun happy vibes, I guess. You
And
know?
there are like studies out there that show that like claim that red can boost your metabolism and stuff like that, so it encourages hunger
Yeah, that's interesting.
as well.
Going back to the excitement of red, I'm seeing like Nintendo, YouTube,
Yeah.
Netflix,
Yes.
and Lego in there. So like
Yeah.
forms of entertainment also.
Yes. It's super fitting.
And a lot of like just like food brands in general, like Lay's chips. Who doesn't get excited over Lay's chips? I know
Right.
I do.
Definitely. Definitely.
Or like Friendly, you see Nickelodeon in there for like kids.
Oh, for orange, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think they definitely all totally align with the colors that they're fitting into.
Right.
I think those categories are very accurate, I would say. So
Yeah, I'm
It's
like
interesting.
I'm like trying to quickly scan through to see if I can find that.
There's a lot
I
to take in
don't-
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like before I had seen this chart, you wouldn't think like you wouldn't connect the dots that a lot of food chains are like in red. But then you look on here and you're like, oh my gosh, like the Chick-fil-A, like McDonald's even has red, Dairy Queen, like it just keeps going and you're like, oh, it all like kind of makes sense, you know?
Well, let me show you guys a quick example. Chick-fil-A, their main color is red,
Mm-hmm.
which we established is hunger, thirst, excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would make a difference if they changed it to say blue? Do you think that would drastically change your view of their brand?
I don't
And
like it.
maybe-
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, it's hard because we all like see
Yeah, we're
Chick-fil-A
used
and
to
we're
it.
like
Exactly.
associated with the red. But like, if it didn't say Chick-fil-A, I definitely don't feel like the
Just doesn't
urgency.
feel
It just feel it doesn't.
It makes me feel calm. Why
Yeah.
would I want fast food to make me feel?
Right. Like I
Right.
trust them. Don't want their food
I'm
though.
trying
Yeah,
to think of
right.
a fast food restaurant that
I mean,
uses
Culver's has blue,
Oh,
Culver's
you're
is blue.
right.
but that's like kind of
You're
the
right.
only one that comes to mind.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, but it's not necessarily even. It's like a darker blue, which I wonder if that.
yeah,
I
for sure.
You have to wonder why brands make the choices that they
Mhm.
make because
Yeah,
everything
it's
is
interesting,
deep.
yeah.
Everything is deep.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind everything.
It's all
exactly.
It's
Yes.
all thought out.
Mhm.
It's
So
really
I
intriguing
mean,
for
even
sure.
this, like, how do you guys feel about like looking at this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it feels right.
No,
I think
it doesn't.
The red Chick-fil-A works better. Maybe it's because they're using like a chicken there, and the
Right.
head of
that's
chicken
right.
is typically red, so maybe they played on that too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm also a frequent Chick-fil-A flyer, so like
Okay.
this just makes me uncomfortable.
But then, like, I'm also thinking about like beyond the logo, like the inside of a restaurant.
Mhm.
I picture like red booths, like red. I don't picture like I don't know.
Right, like the old
I don't know.
McDonald's ones.
Yeah.
Where they used to have like a tile floor.
Yeah.
This is also
yeah,
a
for
really
sure.
great thing to think about when people are considering rebranding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of companies just kind of jump into a rebrand and everyone kind of like freaks out, reasonably
Mhm.
so, because it's not what they're used to and it's not what they associate with your
Right.
brand.
Right. Definitely.
Well, going along with the branding.
Yeah.
When branding your company, it's important to have a palette of colors that you frequently use so your audience can start to form a sense of brand recognition whenever they see your content. This is what we call a brand kit. And they're helpful for creating content so that your posts have features that are similar and unique to your brand.
Mhm.
Why do you guys think having a brand kit is beneficial, and what are some ways you can use your brand kit to help create content?
Yeah, I mean, I think a brand kit is definitely beneficial because it helps you distinguish like your color and make your page unique to yourself. Like, you don't want to have a bunch of different colors all over your stuff. You want to have like your few, like your primary colors, some secondary colors, and then like some fonts. Like, what establishes you? Like this Chick-fil-A font, for example. Like, could you recognize it if it was a different font? Maybe not. Maybe from reading it, but like that like font in itself definitely distinguishes
You
their
associate
brand.
it with
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
People underestimate, psychology and, aesthetics are so
Mhm.
important. When somebody opens up like your Instagram page and the stuff is mismatchy or whatever, you're just kind of like, eh.
Mhm.
Also, if like your post, if someone's scrolling through and they see your colors flash through, that would catch their attention. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Yes.
a Chick-fil-A post. This is a post from the marketing minds of tomorrow." Like
Right.
using
That
those
helps them
brand colors.
distinguish.
Exactly.
Yes, for
Mhm.
sure. And this is especially important like with your when you're in a competitive market too. Like
Right.
you don't want like of course like looking at the colors like red being like or just excited. Like of course a lot of fast foods do have that red, but they also have it tweaked to like a different extent. Like McDonald's has red but also like the golden arches, like the yellow.
Mhm.
Dairy Queen has red but also blue. Like it's just kind of a
You
little
can
bits
use
and
multiple
pieces.
colors.
Yeah.
You can yeah.
And ultimately, it's the combination of colors that you select that make your brand
for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
and define who you are. So select wisely.
Yeah.
Select
I
wisely.
feel like you definitely need more than one color. You know?
Yeah.
Gives you more room for opportunity within designs too.
Expand your palette so it makes it easier to make posts if you can have more stuff to go
Definitely.
off of.
Well, going off of how to use multiple colors, how to pick those multiple
I'm
colors.
just perfectly segue.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're setting me up for these segues. I want to move over to the color wheel.
Mm.
Once you started
Beautiful.
creating a brand kit and you have a main color picked out, it may be hard to come up with those other colors to match to it. Referencing a color wheel at this point in the process could help a lot because using the color wheel, you can look across to see complementary colors,
yep.
and you can use it to start to form those secondary, the third colors, or however many colors you want for your brand.
Takes me right back to kindergarten.
Yes.
My question to you guys is: what are some other ways you think people can use the color wheel to form their brand kit, to form this color wheel?
I think the
that we're
biggest thing
talking about?
for me is like tone.
Yeah,
Yes.
tone is big.
You want to use things that are in the same tone.
Yes,
For
for
the most
sure.
part.
And then kind of to build on like the complementary colors what Connor was saying, I feel like a lot of schools are really good about doing complementary. Like you think of Platteville, the blue and the orange.
Yep.
And you think of a lot of high schools around my area were like the purple and yellow. And it's just or like NFL teams too, like the Vikings, they have that purple and
The
yellow
Bears.
going on.
have
Yeah.
Well, let's not talk about the Vikings.
Yeah, yeah,
players,
yeah.
but,
Yeah, for sure. But like just like a good way that they can utilize that palette and then they can even just add a lighter tone. If you establish like your purple and yellow, for example, you can do multiple different forms of purple and yellow too, just to kind of build on that.
Or even like holiday type colors. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you think of when you think of red and green?
Christmas.
Chris-
Yes.
So these colors help associate.
I feel like
Yes.
that's something important to keep in mind too. Like you decide that your brand's colors are going to be red and green, like people are going to associate you with Christmas.
Right.
For
Yeah.
the most part, if you don't throw
Mindful of
other
that.
things in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which can be beneficial, but like obviously Christmas
If
is
you're a
all year
Christmas
round.
focused
Right,
brand,
right.
like,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's like you have to keep a lot of things in mind when you're trying to select your colors because everything is intentional.
Yes,
Everything is
definitely would agree with that.
All right, now moving away from the color wheel, the last topic I want to touch on regarding color theory
Mhm.
is how to apply your brand kit to your posts.
Mm-hmm.
When creating a post, we like to suggest that clients use similar styles throughout their content, so their content feels like it was produced by one entity. This doesn't mean every post looks the same, but you don't want to make drastic changes when representing your content. My question to you guys is what are some ways you think brands can modify their posts to create a style that is unique to them?
I would literally just say utilizing their brand kit. Like, I think creating an aesthetic on your page of like your colors, your theme is a perfect way to make people distinguish who you are, kind of make everything like flow together well too, and just like ultimately creating that like aesthetic for viewers.
And if like, you're struggling to create a brand kit, one thing I always recommend is Canva.
Yeah.
They do a really great job of like, they have such a large selection of fonts for you to use and like colors and stuff, and you can really find what works for you and your posts. And a nice tool about Canva is I can literally make a brand kit right there, and you can apply it to all of your posts. So they make it really easy.
I think another thing that people can focus on for their style is their photo editing.
Yeah.
If you're gonna edit your photos, don't do drastically different styles.
Right.
Yeah.
Like don't brighten one up and your next post is super dark.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have dimmer photos in your posts, keep the dim photo style going throughout,
That's true.
so that it's as like if people are familiar with their posting style, it's like you see a post and it's like, oh, I know it's from that person.
It's all about aesthetics because if you're on Instagram and you're just looking through someone's open feed and everything's like mismatched in your head, you're kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, aesthetics and consistency for sure.
All right, so that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have talked about the process of creating winning social media posts. To start, we talked about how to format so that audiences are engaged, and then to really find a hook that'll get their attention. And of course, you want to effectively use your colors as well. We dived in on that. And supporting colors that convey emotions that align with your content is also really important. So putting this all together, it's not going to be exactly easy at first. There's going to be a lot of trials and errors, but when it's done effectively, this can make a world of difference, an absolute world of difference. And also, shout out to our camera girl, Haley, for recording this content for us. She's sitting behind there somewhere, so.
Yeah, and if you want to stay up to date, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell to be notified because there's definitely more to be coming.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching the Marketing Minds of Tomorrow episode for today. Remember, every post is a chance to connect, inspire, and engage. So get out there and create content that truly resonates. Until next time, keep innovating, keep engaging, and keep shaping the future of marketing.